If Donald Trump wins in November, he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. He won't win. You're right. We will win. We will win. Part of why we are going to win is because we remember, and we are smart, and we know what's happening, and we're not falling for the gaslighting, and we're not falling for the okey-doke.
Kamala Harris and Tim Walz just wrapped up a raucous campaign rally before more than 15,000 people in Glendale, Arizona. It's their largest rally to date, and it comes as recent polling from Bloomberg and Morning Consult shows Harris gaining ground in Arizona and Nevada, leading Donald Trump in both states by 2 points. That is within the margin of error, but it does show a difference in trend. Joining me now is Jeremy Duda, reporter for Axios Phoenix. Mr. Duda, thank you for being with us. I want to talk to you about the various things that are, we're on camera, the various things that are resonating for or not for Arizona voters. Obviously, the border and immigration is a big one for Arizona voters. Talk to me about Kamala Harris's message there and how it's doing.
Well, the message we saw from the ad, I think, came out just today. I mean, obviously, she's trying to kind of capitalize on the border issue. This is something that Donald Trump has very much made kind of the cornerstone of his campaigns, and since he's been running for president. This is a state where the border issue, illegal immigration, border security, these are potent issues everywhere in the country. But here in Arizona, it reaches a much different level. This is where we kind of bear the brunt of all of this stuff. And so if she is able to kind of deflect some of Trump's criticism on that, it could, bear fruit in the campaign. But we have yet to see. This is still, pretty early.
Let's talk about the discussion about abortion rights and reproductive rights in Arizona. There's a ballot measure in November on abortion rights. Tell me where they are on that.
I know they've submitted their signatures. There is a court challenge, or at least one. There might be multiple ones going on. I think the people who are trying to kick that off the ballot, if I recall correctly, they've lost, but they're appealing. Don't quote me on that. I know that's working its way through the courts, but I think the general expectation is this is going to be on the ballot. I mean, this is very well funded. This was very well planned. They were working on this for a long time before they even launched the campaign. I'd be very surprised if this wasn't on the ballot. But that is something that could definitely, be a turnout driver for, Harris and other Democrats on the ballot here, in the same way that, the Dobbs decision when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade a couple of years ago, where that was a big turnout driver here as well. And we saw kind of how that played out in some, big statewide races here in Arizona.
Let's talk about that turnout issue. In Arizona, it's a big deal, and it's a complicated deal because there are a lot of Republicans who in the last election crossed lines to support Democrats because they were so frustrated by Kari Lake and the election denial stuff. Kari Lake up against Ruben Gallego in the Senate race. Which one motivates the other? The Senate race, does that bring more people out to vote in the presidential race, or does the excitement around Harris and Walz bring more people out to vote in a Senate race, or are those two things in your mind not connected?
The Senate race probably, or the presidential race, sorry, probably drives more people to the polls. I mean, if you weren't, there's probably some folks who weren't necessarily on the left who weren't necessarily excited about voting, 4-6 weeks ago before the race got shaken up by President Biden withdrawing. I mean, there was a definite attitude shift among Democrats where folks were just not optimistic, were not particularly motivated, not enthused. And you've seen, as you saw in that video of the Harris-Walz rally tonight here in Glendale, that attitude has shifted a lot. I think you very well may see that drive more folks to the polls who maybe otherwise weren't going to vote. That and, the abortion initiative, could potentially, have a lot of dividends for the Democrats.
Talk to me about this issue of Republicans frustrated with the Republican Party in Arizona. One might have thought after the last election there'd be a bit of a postmortem and they'd say, well, let's not alienate the people who actually identify as Republicans and conservatives. Arizona is a state with a proud conservative heritage. But Arizona Republicans doubled down on their election denial message. Does the Harris-Walz ticket benefit from that crossover vote?
Most likely. And, we saw that 2 years ago with, this is still a center-right state. You got to remember that even though Democrats have had a lot of wins here in recent elections, this is still, generally a Republican-leaning state. But things change a lot when you start putting some of these, candidates like we saw, election denier, MAGA type candidates, folk in 2022, folks who really made no attempts to kind of reach out towards the center, to reach out towards, what out here we might call the McCain wing of the party. And a lot of those folks ended up voting for Democrats 2 years ago. And we may not. So far, I don't know that we've seen, a lot of Republicans who are running here in Arizona. I think some of them are doing kind of the same thing as even some of the same candidates in some cases, not really making much of an effort to reach out to the center, to the Republicans who've kind of peeled off in the last few years. And if they're not able to win those folks over, that could that could be bad news come November.
We're all going to be paying a lot of close attention once again to the state of Arizona. Jeremy, good to have you on. Thanks for joining us tonight. Jeremy Duda with Axios Phoenix.